the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Adi Parva. Section 141, Sambhava Parva continued. Vasampayana continued, after the expiration, O king, of a year from this, Dhritarashtra, moved by kindness for the people, installed Yudhishthira the son of Pandu as the heir apparent of the kingdom on account of his firmness, fortitude, patience, benevolence, frankness and unswerving honesty of heart. And within a short time Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, by his good behavior, manners and close application to business, overshadowed the deeds of his father. And the second Pandav, Vrikodra, began to receive continued lessons from Sankarsana, Valarma, in encounters with the sword and the make and on the chariot. And after Bhima's education was finished, he became in strength like unto the Yumatsena himself, and continuing to live in harmony with his brothers, he began to exert his prowess. And Arjuna became celebrated for the firmness of his grasp of weapons, for his lightness of motion, precision of aim, and his proficiency in the use of the Kstra, Naracha, Vala and Viptha weapons, indeed, of all weapons, whether straight or crooked or heavy. And Drona certified that there was none in the world who was equal to Arjuna in lightness of hand and general proficiency. One day, Drona, addressing Arjuna before the assembled Kaurava princes, said, "There was a disciple of Agastya in the science of arms called Agnivesa. He was my preceptor and I, his disciple. By ascetic merit I obtained from him a weapon called Brahmasira, which could never be futile and which was like unto thunder itself, one capable of consuming the whole earth. That weapon, O Bharata, from what I have done, may now pass from disciple to disciple." While imparting it to me, my preceptor said, "O son of Bharadwaja, never shouldst thou hurl this weapon at any human being, especially at one who is of poor energy. Thou hast, O hero, obtained that celestial weapon. None else deserveth it. But obey the command of the Rishi, Agnivesa. And, look here, Arjuna, give me now the preceptorial fee in the presence of these thy cousins and relatives." When Arjuna, on hearing this, pledged his word that he would give what the preceptor demanded, the latter said, "O sinless one, thou must fight with me when I fight with thee." And that bull among the Kuru princes thereupon pledged his word unto Drona, and touching his feet, went away northward. Then there arose a loud shout covering the whole earth, bounded by her belt of seas, to the effect that there was no bowman in the whole world like unto Arjuna. And, indeed, Dhananjaya, in encounters with the make and the sword and on the chariot as also with the bow, acquired wonderful proficiency. Satdeva obtained the whole science of morality and duties from Vrihaspati, the spiritual chief of celestials, and continued to live under the control of his brothers. And Nakula, the favorite of his brothers taught by Drona, became known as a skillful warrior and a great car warrior, Atiratha. Indeed, Arjuna and the other Pandav princes became so powerful that they slew in battle the great Savira, who had performed a sacrifice extending over 3 years, undaunted by the raids of the Gandharvas. And the king III and the Yavanas himself, whom the powerful Pandu even had failed to bring under subjection, was brought by Arjuna under control. Then again Vipula, the king of the Saviras, endued with great prowess, who had always shown a disregard for the Kurus, was made by the intelligent Arjuna to feel the edge of his power. And Arjuna also repressed by means of his arrows, the pride of King Sumitra of Savira, also known by the name of Daktamitra, who had resolutely sought an encounter with him. The third of the Pandavas, princes, assisted by Bhima, on only a single car subjugated all the kings of the east backed by 10,000 cars. In the same way, having conquered on a single car the whole of the south, Dhananjaya sent unto the kingdom of the Kurus a large booty. Thus did those foremost of men, the illustrious Pandavas, conquering the territories of other kings, extend the limits of their own kingdom. But beholding the great prowess and strength of those mighty bowmen, King Dhritarashtra's sentiments towards the Pandavas became suddenly poisoned, and from that day the monarch became so anxious that he could hardly sleep. Thus ends the 141st section in the Sambhava Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 142, Sambhava Parva continued. Vasampayana continued, on hearing that the heroic sons of Pandu endued with excess of energy had become so mighty, King Dhritarashtra became very miserable with anxiety. Then summoning unto his side Kanika, that foremost of minister well versed in the science of politics and an expert in counsels, the king said, O best of Brahmanas, the Pandavas are daily overshadowing the earth. I am exceedingly jealous of them. Should I have peace or war with them? O Kanika, advise me truly, for I shall do as thou biddest. Vasampayana continued, that best of Brahmanas, thus addressed by the king, freely answered him in these pointed words, well agreeing with the import of political science. Listen to me, O sinless king, as I answer thee. And, O best of Kuru kings, it behoveth thee not to be angry with me after hearing all I say. Kings should ever be ready with uplifted maces, to strike when necessary, and they should ever increase their prowess. Carefully avoiding all faults themselves, they should ceaselessly watch over the faults of their foes and take advantage of them. If the king is always ready to strike, everybody feareth him. Therefore the king should ever have recourse to chastisement in all he doth. He should so conduct himself that his foe may not detect any weak side in him, but by means of the weakness he detecteth in his foe he should pursue him to destruction. He should always conceal, like the tortoise, concealing its body, his means and ends, and he should always keep back his own weakness from the sight of others. And having begun a particular act, he should ever accomplish it thoroughly. Behold, a thorn, if not extracted wholly, produceth a festering sore. The slaughter of a foe who doeth the evil is always praiseworthy. If the foe be one of great prowess, one should always watch for the hour of his disaster and then kill him without any scruples. If he should happen to be great warrior, his hour of disaster also should be watched and he should then be induced to fly. O, sire, an enemy should never be scorned, however contemptible. A spark of fire is capable of consuming an extensive forest if only it can spread from one object to another in proximity. Kings should sometimes feign blindness and deafness, for if impotent to chastise, they should pretend not to notice the faults that call for chastisement. On occasion, such as these, let them regard their bows as mode of straw. But they should be always on the alert like a herd of deer sleeping in the woods. When thy foe is in thy power, destroy him by every means open or secret. Do not show him any mercy, although he seeketh thy protection. A foe, or one that hath once injured thee, should be destroyed by lavishing money, if necessary, for by killing him thou mayest be at your ease. The dead can never inspire fear. Thou must destroy the 3, 5 and 7 resources of thy foes. Thou must destroy thy foes root and branch. Then shouldst thou destroy their allies and partisans. The allies and partisans can never exist if the principle be destroyed. If the root of T vertical bar I.e. tree is torn up, the branches and twigs can never exist as before. Carefully concealing thy own means and ends, thou shouldst always watch thy foes, always seeking their flaws. Thou shouldst, O king, rule thy kingdom, always anxiously watching thy foes. By maintaining the perpetual fire by sacrifices, by brown cloths, by matted locks, and by hides of animals for thy bedding, shouldst thou at first gain the confidence of thy foes, and when thou hast gained it thou shouldst then spring upon them like a wolf. For it hath been said that in the acquisition of wealth even the garb of holiness might be employed as a hooked staff to bend down a branch in order to pluck the fruits that are ripe. The method followed in the plucking of fruits should be the method in destroying foes, for thou shouldst proceed on the principle of selection. Bear thy foe upon thy shoulders till the time cometh when thou canst throw him down, breaking him into pieces like an earthen pot thrown down with violence upon a stony surface. The foe must never be let off even though he addressed thee most piteously. No pity shouldst thou show him but slay him at once. By the arts of conciliation or the expenditure of money should the foe be slain. By creating disunion amongst his allies, or by the employment of force, indeed by very means in thy power shouldst thou destroy thy foe. Dhritarashtra said, Tell me truly how can a foe be destroyed by the arts of conciliation or the expenditure of money, or by producing disunion or by the employment of force? Kanika replied, Listen, O monarch, to the history of a jackal dwelling in days of yore in the forest and fully acquainted with the science of politics. There was a wise jackal, mindful of his own interests, who lived in the company of 4 friends, viz., a tiger, a mouse, a wolf, and a mongoose. One day they saw in the woods a strong deer, the leader of a herd, whom, however, they could not seize for his fleetness and strength. They thereupon called a council for consultation. The jackal, opening the proceedings, said, O tiger, thou hast made many an effort to seize this deer, but all in vain simply because this deer is young, fleet and very intelligent. Let now the mouse go and eat into its feet when it lieth asleep. And when this is done, let the tiger approach and seize it. Then shall we all, with great pleasure, feast on it. Hearing these words of the jackal, they all set to work very cautiously as he directed. And the mouse ate into the feet of the deer, and the tiger killed it as anticipated. And beholding the body of the deer lying motionless on the ground, the jackal said unto his companions, Blessed be ye, I go and perform your ablutions. In the meantime I will look after the deer. Hearing what the jackal said, they all went into a stream, and the jackal waited there, deeply meditating upon what he should do. The tiger, endued with great strength, returned first of all to the spot after having performed his ablutions. And he saw the jackal there plunged in meditation. The tiger said, Why art thou so sorrowful, O wise one? Thou art the foremost of all intelligent beings. Let us enjoy ourselves today by feasting on this carcass. The jackal said, Hear, O mighty armed one, what the mouse hath said. He hath even said, O, fie on the strength of the king of the beast. This deer hath been slain by me. By might of my arm he will today gratify his hunger. Where hath boasted in such a language, I, for my part, do not wish to touch this food. The tiger replied, If, indeed, the mouse hath said so, my sense is now awakened. I shall, from this day, slay with the might of my own arms, creatures ranging the forest and then feast on their flesh. Having said this, the tiger went away. And after the tiger had left the spot, the mouse came. And seeing the mouse come, the jackal addressed him and said, "Blessed be thou, O mouse, but listen to what the mongoose hath said. He hath even said, the carcass of this deer is poison, the tiger having touched it with his claws. I will not eat of it. On the other hand, if thou, O jackal, permittest it, I will even slay the mouse and feast on him." Hearing this, the mouse became alarmed and quickly entered his hole. And after the mouse had gone, the wolf, O king, came there having performed his ablutions. And seeing the wolf come, the jackal said unto him, "The king of the beasts hath been angry with thee. Evil is certain to overtake thee. He is expected here with his wife. Do as thou pleasest." Thus was the wolf also, fond of animal flesh, got rid of by the jackal. And the wolf fled, contracting his body into the smallest dimensions. It was then that the mongoose came. And, O king, the jackal, seeing him come, said, "By the might of my arm have I defeated the others who have already fled. Fight with me first and then eat of this flesh as you please." I, the mongoose, replied, "When, indeed, the tiger, the wolf, and the intelligent mouse have all been defeated by thee, heroes as they are, thou seemest to be a greater hero still. I do not desire to fight with thee." Saying this, the mongoose also went away. Kanika continued, when they all had thus left the place, the jackal, well pleased with the success of his policy, alone ate up that flesh. If kings always act in this way, they can be happy. Thus should the timid by exciting their fears, the courageous by the arts of conciliation, the covetous by gift of wealth, and equals and inferiors by exhibition of prowess be brought under thy sway. Besides all this, O king, that I have said, listen now to something else that I say. Kanika continued, if thy son, friend, brother, father, or even the spiritual preceptor, anyone become thy foe, thou shouldst, if desirous of prosperity, slay him without scruples. By curses and incantations, by gift of wealth, by poison, or by deception, the foe should be slain. He should never be neglected from disdain. If both the parties be equal and success uncertain, then he that acteth with diligence groweth in prosperity. If the spiritual preceptor himself be vain, ignorant of what should be done and what left undone, and vicious in his ways, even he should be chastised. If thou art angry, show thyself as if thou art not so, speaking even then with a smile on thy lips. Never reprove any one with indications of anger in thy speech. And O Bharata, speak soft words before thou smiteth and even while thou art smithing. After the smithing is over, pity the victim, and grieve for him, and even shed tears. Comforting thy foe by conciliation, by gift of wealth, and smooth behavior, thou must smite him when he walketh not aright. Thou shouldst equally smite the heinous offender who liveth by the practice of virtue, for the garb of virtue simply covereth his offences like black clouds covering the mountains. Thou shouldst burn the house of that person whom thou punishest with death. And thou shouldst never permit beggars and atheists and thieves to dwell in thy kingdom. By a leaden sally or pitched battle, by poison or by corrupting his allies, by gift of wealth, by any means in thy power, thou shouldst destroy thy foe. Thou mayest act with the greatest cruelty. Thou shouldst make thy teeth sharp to give a fatal bite. And thou should ever smite so effectually that thy foe may not again raise his head. Thou shouldst ever stand in fear of even one from whom there is no fear, not to speak of him from whom there is such. For if the first be ever powerful, he may destroy thee to the root. For thy unpreparedness, thou shouldst never trust the faithless, nor trust too much those that are faithful. For if those in whom thou confidest prove thy foes, thou art certain to be annihilated after testing their faithfulness. Thou shouldst employ spies in thy own kingdom and in the kingdoms of others. Thy spies in foreign kingdoms should be apt deceivers and persons in the garb of ascetics. Thy spies should be placed in gardens, places of amusement, temple and other holy places, drinking halls, streets, and with the 18 tirthas, viz. the minister, the chief priest, the heir presumptive, the commander-in-chief, the gatekeepers of the court, persons in the inner apartments, the jailer, the chief surveyor, the head of the treasury, the general executant of orders, the chief of the town police, the chief architect, the chief justice, the president of the council, the chief of the punitive department, the commander of the fort, the chief of the arsenal, the chief of the frontier guards, and the keeper of the forests, and in places of sacrifice, near wells, on mountains and in rivers, in forests, and in all places where people congregate. In speech thou shouldst ever be humble, but let thy heart be ever sharp as razor. And when thou art engaged in doing even a very cruel and terrible act, thou shouldst talk with smiles on thy lips. If desirous of prosperity, thou shouldst adopt all arts, humility, oath, conciliation, worshipping the feet of others by lowering thy head, inspiring hope, and the like. And person conversant with the rules of policy is like a tree decked with flowers but bearing no fruit, or, if bearing fruit, these must be at a great height not easily attainable from the ground, and if any of these fruits seem to be ripe, care must be taken to make it appear raw. Conducting himself in such a way, he shall never fade. Virtue, wealth and pleasure have both their evil and good effects closely knit together. While extracting the effects that are good, those that are evil should be avoided. Those that practice virtue incessantly are made unhappy for want of wealth and the neglect of pleasure. Those again in pursuit of wealth are made unhappy for the neglect of the two others. And so those who pursue pleasure suffer for their inattention to virtue and wealth. Therefore, thou shouldst pursue virtue, wealth and pleasure, in such a way that thou mayest not have to suffer therefrom. With humiliation and attention, without jealousy and solicitous of accomplishing thy purpose, shouldst thou, in all sincerity, consult with the Brahmanas. When thou art fallen, thou shouldst raise thyself by any means, gentle or violent, and after thou hast thus raised thyself thou shouldst practice virtue. He that hath never been afflicted with calamity can never have prosperity. This may be seen in the life of one who surviveth his calamities. He that is afflicted with sorrow should be consoled by the recitation of that history of persons of former times, like those of Nala and Rama. He whose heart hath been unstrung by sorrow should be consoled with hopes of future prosperity. He again who is learned and wise should be consoled by pleasing offices presently rendered unto him. He who, having concluded a treaty with an enemy, reposeth at ease as if he hath nothing more to do, is very like a person who awaketh, fallen down from the top of a tree whereon he had slept. A king should ever keep to himself his counsels without fear of calumny, and while beholding everything with the eyes of his spies, he should take care to conceal his own emotions before the spies of his enemies. Like a fisherman who becomes prosperous by catching and killing fish, A king can never grow prosperous without tearing the vitals of his enemy and without doing some violent deeds. The might of thy foe, as represented by his armed force, should ever be completely destroyed, by ploughing it up, like weeds, and mowing it down and otherwise afflicting it by disease, starvation, and want of drink. A person is wont never approacheth, from love, one in affluence, and when one's purpose hath been accomplished, one hath no need to approach him whom he had hitherto looked to for its accomplishment. Therefore when thou dost anything never do it completely, but ever leave something to be desired for by others, whose services thou mayest need. One who is desirous of prosperity should with diligence seek allies and means, and carefully conduct his wars. His exertions in these respects should always be guided by prudence. A prudent king should ever act in such a way that friends and foes may never know his motive before the commencement of his acts. Let them know all when the act hath been commenced or ended, and as long as danger doth not come, so long only shalt thou act as if thou art a trug. But when it hath overtaken thee, thou must grapple with it courageously. He who trusteth in a foe who hath been brought under subjection by force, summoneth his own death as a crab by her act of conception. Thou shouldst always reckon the future act as already arrived, and concert measures for meeting it, else, from want of calmness caused by haste, thou mayest overlook an important point in meeting it when it is before thee. A person desirous of prosperity should always exert with prudence, adopting his measures to time and place. He should also act with an eye to destiny as capable of being regulated by mantras and sacrificial rites, and to virtue, wealth, and pleasure. It is well known that time and place, if taken into consideration, always produce the greatest good. If the foe is insignificant, he should not yet be despised, for he may soon grow like a palmyra tree extending its roots, or like a spark of fire in the deep woods that may soon burst into an extensive conflagration. As a little fire gradually fed with faggots soon becomes capable of consuming even the biggest blocks, so the person who increaseth his power by making alliances and friendships soon becomes capable of subjugation even the most formidable foe. The hope thou givest unto thy foe should be long deferred before it is fulfilled, and when the time cometh for its fulfillment, invent some pretext for deferring it. Still let that pretext be shown as founded upon some reason, and let that reason itself be made to appear as founded on some other reason. Kings should, in the matter of destroying their foes, ever resemble razors in every particular, unpitying as these are sharp, hiding their intents as these are concealed in their leathern cases, striking when the opportunity cometh as these are used on proper occasion, sweeping off their foes with all their allies and dependants as these shave the head or the chin without leaving a single hair. O supporter of the dignity of the Kurus, bearing thyself towards the Pandavas and others also as policy dictateth, act in such a way that thou mayest not have to grieve in future. Well do I know that thou art endued with every blessing, and possessed of every mark of good fortune. Therefore, O king, protect thyself from the sons of Pandu. O king, the sons of Pandu are stronger than their cousins, thy sons. Therefore, O chastiser of foes, I tell thee plainly what thou shouldst do. Listen to it, O king, with thy children, and having listened to it, exert yourselves to do the needful. O king, act in such a way that there may not be any fear for thee from the Pandavas. Indeed, adopt such measures consonant with the science of policy thou mayest not have to grieve in the future. Vasampayana continued, having delivered himself thus Kanika returned to his abode, while the Kuru king Dhritarashtra became pensive and melancholy. Thus ends the 142nd section in the Sambhava Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 143, Jatugriha Parva. Vasampayana said, then the son of Suvala, Sakuni, King Duryodhana, Dasasana and Kama, in consultation with one another, formed an evil conspiracy. With the sanction of Dhritarashtra, the king of the Kuru, they resolved to burn to death Kunti and her 5 sons. But that wise Vidura, capable of reading the heart by external signs, ascertained the intention of these wicked persons by observing their countenances alone. Then the sinless of Vidura, of soul enlightened by true knowledge, and devoted to the good of the Pandavas, came to the conclusion that Kunti with her children should fly away from her foes. And providing for that purpose a boat furnished with enemies and flags and strong enough to withstand both wind and wave, he addressed Kunti and said, this Dhritarashtra hath been born for destroying the fame and offspring of the Kuru race. Of wicked soul he is about to cast off eternal virtue. O blessed one, I have kept ready on the stream a boat capable of withstanding both wind and wave. Escape by it with thy children from the net that death hath spread around you. Vasampayana continued, hearing these words, the illustrious Kunti was deeply grieved, and with her children, O bull of Bharata's race, stepped into the boat and went over the Ganges. Then leaving boat according to the advice of Vidura, the Pandavas took with them the wealth that had been given to them, while a Varnavata, by their enemies and safely entered the deep woods. In the house of Lak, however, that had been prepared for the destruction of the Pandavas, an innocent Nishda woman who had come there for some purpose, was, with her children burned to death. And that worst of lectures the wretched Purochna, who was the architect employed in building the house of Lak, was also burned in the conflagration. And thus were the sons of Dhritarashtra with their counsellors deceived in their expectations, and thus also were the illustrious Pandavas, by the advice of Vidura, saved with their mother. But the people of Varnavata knew not of their safety, and the citizens of Varnavata, seeing the house of Lak consumed, and believing the Pandavas to have been burned to death, became exceedingly sorry. And they sent messengers unto King Dhritarashtra to represent everything that had happened. And they told the monarch, thy great end hath been achieved, thou hast at last burnt the Pandavas to death, thy desire fulfilled, enjoy with thy children, O king of the Kurus, the kingdom. Hearing this, Dhritarashtra with his children, made a show of grief, and along with his relatives, including Khatri, Vidura, and Bhishma the foremost of the Kurus, performed the last honors of the Pandavas. Janamejaya said, O best of Brahmanas, I desire to hear in full this history of the burning of the house of Lak and the escape of the Pandavas therefrom. That was a cruel act of theirs, the Kurus, acting under the counsels of the wicked, Kanika. Recite the history to me of all that happened. I am burning with curiosity to hear it. Vasampayana said, O chastiser of all foes, listen to me, O monarch, as I recite the history of the burning the house of Lak and the escape of the Pandavas. The wicked Duryodhana, beholding Bhimsena surpass everybody in strength and Arjuna highly accomplished in arms, became pensive and sad. Then Kama, the offspring of the sun, and Sakuni, the son of Suvala, endeavored by various means to compass the death of the Pandavas. The Pandavas too counteracted all those contrivances one after another, and in obedience to the counsels of Vidura, never spoke of them afterwards. Then the citizens, beholding the son of Pandu possessed of accomplishments, began, O Bharata, to speak of them in all places of public resort, and assembled in courtyards and other places of gathering, they talked of the eldest son of Pandu, Yudhishthira, as possessed of the qualifications for ruling the kingdom. And they said, Dhritarashtra, though possessed of the eye of knowledge, having been born blind, obtained not the kingdom before, how can he, therefore, become king now? Then Bhishma, the son of Santanu, of rigid voice and devoted to truth, having formerly relinquished the sovereignty, would never accept it now. We shall, therefore, now install, on the throne, with proper ceremonies, the eldest of the Pandavas, endued with youth, accomplished in battle, versed in the Vedas, and truthful and kind. Worshipping Bhishma, the son of Santanu, and Dhritarashtra, conversant with the rules of morality, he will certainly maintain the former and the latter with his children in every kind of enjoyment. The wretched Duryodhana, hearing these words of the prating partisans of Yudhishthira, became very much distressed. Deeply afflicted, the wicked prince could not put up with those speeches. Inflamed with jealousy, he went unto Dhritarashtra, and finding him alone, he saluted him with reverence, and distressed at the sight of the partiality of the citizens for Yudhishthira, he addressed the monarch and said, O father, I have heard the parting citizens utter words of ill omen. Passing thee by, and Bhishma too, they desire the son of Pandu to be their king. Bhishma will sanction this, for he will not rule the kingdom. It seems, therefore, that the citizens are endeavoring to inflict a great injury on us. Pandu obtained of old the ancestral kingdom by virtue of his own accomplishments, but thou, from blindness, didst not obtain the kingdom, though fully qualified to have it. If Pandu's son now obtaineth the kingdom as his inheritance from Pandu, his son will obtain it after him, and that son's son also, and so on will it descend in Pandu's line. In that case, O King of the world, ourselves with our children, excluded from the royal line, shall certainly be disregarded by all men. Therefore, O monarch, adopt such counsels that we may not suffer perpetual distress, becoming dependents on others for our food. O king, if thou hadst obtained the sovereignty before, we would certainly have succeeded to it, however much the people might be unfavorable to us. Thus ends the 143rd section in the Jatagriha Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 144, Jatagriha Parva continued. Vasampayana continued, King Dhritarashtra, whose knowledge only was his eyes, on hearing these words of his son and recollecting everything that Kanika had said unto him, became afflicted with sorrow, and his mind also thereupon began to waver. Then Duryodhana, and Kama, and Sakuni, the son of Suvala, and Dusasana as their fourth, held a consultation together. Prince Duryodhana said unto Dhritarashtra, Send, O father, by some clever contrivance, the Pandavas to the town of Varnavata. We shall then have no fear of them. Dhritarashtra, on hearing these words uttered by his son, reflected for a moment and replied unto Duryodhana, saying, Pandu, ever devoted to virtue, always behaved dutifully towards all his relatives, but particularly towards myself. He cared very little for the enjoyments of the world, but devotedly gave everything unto me, even the kingdom. His son is as much devoted to virtue as he, and is possessed of every accomplishment. Of worldwide fame, he is again the favorite of the people. Possessed of allies, How can we by force exile him from his ancestral kingdom? The councillors and soldiers of the state, and their sons and grandsons have all been cherished and maintained by Pandu. Thus benefited of old by Pandu, shall not, O child, the citizens slay us with all our friends and relatives now on account of Yudhishthira. Duryodhana replied, What thou sayest, O father, is perfectly true. But in view of the evil that is looming on the future as regards thyself, if we conciliate the people with wealth and honors, they would assuredly side with us for these proofs of our power. The treasury and the ministers of state, O king, are at this moment under our control. Therefore, it behoveth thee now to banish, by some gentle means, the Pandavas to the town of Varnavata, O king, when the sovereignty shall have been vested in me. Then, O Bharata, may Kunti with her children come back from that place. Dhritarashtra replied, This, O Duryodhana, is the very thought existing in my mind. But from its sinfulness I have never given expression to it. Neither Bhishma, nor Drona, nor Khatri, nor Gautama, Kripa, will never sanction the exile of the Pandavas. In their eyes, O dear son, amongst the Kurus, ourselves and the Pandavas are equal. Those wise and virtuous persons will make no difference between us. If, therefore, we behave so towards the Pandavas, shall we not, O son, deserve death at the hands of Kurus, of these illustrious personages, and of the whole world? Duryodhana answered, Bhishma hath no excess of affection for either side, and will, therefore, be natural, in case of dispute. The son of Drona, Aswatthama, is on my side. There is no doubt that where the son is, there the father will be. The Kripa, the son of Sardavath, must be on the side on which Drona and Aswatthama are. He will never abandon Drona and his sister's son, Aswatthama. Khatri, Vidura, is dependent on us for his means of life, though he is secretly with the foe. If he sides the Pandavas, he alone can do us no injury. Therefore, exile thou the Pandavas to Varnavata without any fear, and take such steps that they may go thither this very day. But this act, O father, extinguish the grief that consumeth me like a blazing fire, that robbeth me of sleep, and that pierced my heart even like a terrible dart. Thus ends the 144th section in the Jatagriha Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 145, Jatagriha Parva continued. Vasampayana said, Then Prince Duryodhana along with his brothers began to gradually win over the people to his side by grants of wealth and honors. Meanwhile, some clever counsellors, instructed by Dhritarashtra, one day began to describe, in court, the town of the Varnavata as a charming place. And they said the festival of Pasupti, Shiva, hath commenced in the town of Varnavata. The concourse of people is great and the procession is the most delightful of all ever witnessed on earth. Decked with every ornament, it charmed the hearts of all spectators. Thus did those counsellors, instructed by Dhritarashtra, speak of Varnavata, and whilst they were so speaking, the Pandavas, O king, felt the desire of going to that delightful town. And when the king, Dhritarashtra, ascertained that the curiosity of the Pandavas had been awakened, the son of Ambika addressed them, saying, These men of mine often speak of Varnavata as the most delightful town in the world. If therefore, ye children, ye desire to witness that festival, go to Varnavata with your followers and friends and enjoy yourselves there like the celestials. And give ye away pearls and gems unto the Brahmanas and the musicians, that may be assembled there. And sporting there for some time as ye please like the resplendent celestials, and enjoying as much pleasure as ye like, return ye to Hastinapura again. Vasampayana continued, Yudhishthira, fully understanding the motives of Dhritarashtra and considering that he himself was weak and friendless, replied unto the king, saying, So be it. Then addressing Bhishma, the son of Santanu, the wise Vidura, Drona, Valhika, the Kaurava, Somadata, Kripa, Aswathaman, Burisravas, and the other reverend counselors, and Brahmanas and ascetics, and the priests and the citizens, and the illustrious Gandhari, he said slowly humbly, with our friends and followers we go to the delightful and populous town of Varnavata at the command of Dhritarashtra. Cheerfully give us your benedictions so that acquiring prosperity therewith we may not be touched by sin. Thus addressed by the eldest of Pandu's sons, the Kaurava chiefs all cheerfully pronounced blessings on them, saying, Ye sons of Pandu, let all the elements bless you along your way and let not the slightest evil befall you. The Pandavas, having performed propitiatory rites for obtaining their share of the kingdom, and finishing their preparations, set out for Varnavata. Thus ends the 145th section in the Jatagriha Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 146, Jatagriha Parva continued. Vasampayana said, The wicked Duryodhana became very pleased when the king, O Bharata, had said so unto the Pandavas. And, O bull of Bharata's race, Duryodhana then, summoning his counselor, Purochna in private, took hold of his right hand and said, O Purochna, this world, so full of wealth, is mine. But it is thine equally with me. It behoveth thee, therefore, to protect it. I have no more trustworthy counselor than thyself with whom to consult. Therefore, O sire, keep my counsel and exterminate my foes by a clever device. O, do as I did thee. The Pandavas have, by Dhritarashtra, been sent to Varnavata, where they will, at Dhritarashtra's command, enjoy themselves during the festivities. Do that by which thou mayest this very day reach Varnavata in a cart drawn by swift mules. I repairing thither, cause thou to be erected a quadrangular palace in the neighborhood of the arsenal, rich in the materials and furniture, and guard thou the mansion well, with prying eyes. And use thou, in erecting that house, hemp and resin and all other inflammable materials that are procurable. And mixing a little earth with clarified butter and oil and fat and a large quantity of lac, make thou a plaster for lining the walls, and scatter thou all around that house hemp and oil and clarified butter and lac and wood in such a way that the Pandavas, or any others, may not, even with scrutiny, behold them there or conclude the house to be an inflammable one. And having erected such mansion, cause thou the Pandavas, after worshipping them with great reverence, to dwell in it with Kunti and all their friends. And place thou their seats and conveyances and beds, all of the best workmanship, for the Pandavas, so that Dhritarashtra may have no reason to complain. Thou must also manage it all that none of Varnavata may know anything till the end we have in view is accomplished. And assuring thyself that the Pandavas are sleeping within in confidence and without fear, thou must then set fire to that mansion beginning at the outer door. The Pandavas thereupon must be burned to death, but the people will say that they have been burnt in an accidental conflagration of their house. Saying, So be it, unto the Kuru prince, Purochna repaired to Varnavata in a car drawn by fleet mules. And going thither, O king, without loss of time, obedient to the instructions of Duryodhana, he did everything that prince had bid him do. Thus ends the 146th section in the Jatugriha Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 147, Jatugriha Parva continued. Vasampayana said, meanwhile the Pandavas got into their cars, yoking thereto some fine horses endued with the speed of wind. While they were on the point of entering their cars, they touched, in great sorrow, the feet of Bhishma, of King Dhritarashtra, of the illustrious Drona, of Kripa, of Vidura and of the other elders of the Kuru race. Thou saluting with reverence all the older men, and embracing their equals, receiving the farewell of even the children, and taking leave of all the venerable ladies in their household, and walking round them respectfully, and bidding farewell unto all the citizens, the Pandavas, ever mindful of their woes, set out for Varnavata. And Vidura of great wisdom and the other bulls among the Kurus and the citizens also, from great affliction, followed those tigers among men to some distance. And some amongst the citizens and the country people, who followed the Pandavas, afflicted beyond measure at beholding the sons of Pandu in such distress, began to say aloud, King Dhritarashtra of wicked soul seeth no things with the same eye the Kuru monarch casteth not his eye on virtue. Neither the sinless Yudhishthira, nor Bhima the foremost of mighty men, nor Dhananjaya the youngest, son of Kunti, will ever be guilty of the sin of waging a rebellious war. When these will remain quiet, how shall the illustrious son of Madri do anything? Having inherited two kingdom from their father, Dhritarashtra could not bear them. How is that Bhishma, who suffers the exile of the Pandavas to that wretched place, sanctions this act of great injustice? Vichitravirya, the son of Santanu and the royal sage Pandu of Kuru's race, both cherished us of old with fatherly care, but now that Pandu, that tiger among men, hath ascended to heaven, Dhritarashtra cannot bear with these princes his children. We who do not sanction this exile shall all go, leaving this excellent town and our own homes, where Yudhishthira will go, unto those distressed citizens, taking in this way, the virtuous Yudhishthira, himself afflicted with sorrow, reflecting for a few moments said, the king is our father, worthy of regard, our spiritual guide, and our superior. To carry out with unsuspicious hearts whatever he biddeth, is, indeed, our duty. Ye are our friends, walking round us and making us happy by your blessings. Return ye to your abodes. When the time cometh for anything to be done for us by you, then, indeed, accomplish all that is agreeable and beneficial to us. Thus addressed, the citizens walked round the Pandavas and blessed them with their blessings and returned to their respective abodes. And after the citizens had ceased following the Pandavas, Vidura, conversant with all the dictates of morality, desirous of awakening the eldest of the Pandavas to a sense of his dangers, addressed him in these words. The learned Vidura, conversant with the jargon of the lectures, addressed the learned Yudhishthira, who also was conversant with the same jargon, in the words of the lecture tongue, so as to be unintelligible to all except Yudhishthira. He said, he that knoweth the schemes his foes contrive in accordance with the dictates of political science, should, knowing them, act in such a way as to avoid all danger. He that knoweth that there are sharp weapons capable of cutting the body though not made of steel, and understandeth also the means of warding them off, can never be injured by foes. He liveth who protecteth himself by the knowledge that neither the consumer of straw and wood nor the dryer of the dew burneth the inmates of a hole in the deep woods. The blind man seeth not his way, the blind man hath no knowledge of direction. He that hath no firmness never acquireth prosperity. Remembering this, be upon your guard. The man who taketh a weapon not made of steel, i.e., an inflammable abode, given him by his foes, can escape from fire by making his abode like unto that of a jackal, having many outlets. By wandering a man may acquire the knowledge of ways, and by the stars he can ascertain the directions, and he that keepeth his 5 senses under control can never be oppressed by his enemies. Thus addressed, Pandu's son, Yudhishthira the just replied unto Vidura, that foremost of all learned men, saying, I have understood thee. Then Vidura, having instructed the Pandavas and followed them, thus far, walked around them and bidding them farewell returned to his own abode. When the citizens and Bhishma and Vidura had all ceased following, Kunti approached Yudhishthira and said the words that Kakri said unto thee in the midst of many people so indistinctly as if he did not say anything, and thy reply also to him in similar words and voice, we have not understood. If it is not improper for us to know them, I should then like to hear everything that had passed between him and thee. Yudhishthira replied, the virtuous Vidura said unto me that we should know that the mansion, for our accommodation at Varnavata, hath been built of inflammable materials. He said unto me, the path of escape too shall not be unknown to thee, and further those that can control their senses can acquire the sovereignty of the whole world. The reply that I gave unto Vidura was, I have understood thee. Vasampayana continued, the Pandavas set out on the 8th day of the month of Falguna when the star Rohini was ascendant, and arriving at Varnavata they beheld the town and the people. Thus ends the 147th section in the Jatugriha Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 148, Jatugriha Parva continued. Vasampayana said, then all the citizens of Varnavata, on hearing that son of Pandu had come, were filled with joy at the tidings, not speedily came out of Varnavata, in vehicles of various kinds numbering by thousands, taking with them every auspicious article as directed by the Sastras, for receiving those foremost of men. And the people of Varnavata, approaching the sons of Kunti, blessed them by uttering the Jaya and stood surrounding them. That tiger among men viz, the virtuous Yudhishthira, thus surrounded by them looked resplendent like him having the thunderbolt in his hands, viz, Indra, in the midst of the celestials. And those sinless ones, welcomed by the citizens and welcoming the citizens in return, then entered the populous town of Varnavata decked with every ornament. Entering the town, those heroes first went, O monarch, to the abodes of Brahmanas engaged in their proper duties. Those foremost of men then went to the abodes of the officials of the town, and then of the Sutas and the Vaisyas, and then to those of even the Sudras, O bull of Bharata's race. Thus adored by the citizens, the Pandavas at last went with Purochna going before them, to the palace that had been built for them. Purochna then began to place before them food and drink and beds and carpets, all of the first and most agreeable order. The Pandavas, attired in costly robes, continued to live there, adored by Purochna and the people having their homes in Varnavata. After the Pandavas had thus lived for 10 nights, Purochna spoke to them of the mansion he had built, called the blessed home, but in reality the cursed house. Then those tigers among men, attired in costly dress, entered that mansion at the instance of Purochna, like Kuhayakas entering the palace of Shiva on the Kailas Mount. The foremost of all virtuous men, Yudhishthira, inspecting the house, said unto Bhima that it was really built of inflammable materials. Smelling the scent of fat mixed with clarified butter and preparations of lac, he said unto Bhima, O chastiser of foes, this house is truly built of inflammable materials. Indeed, it is apparent that such is the case. The enemy, it is evident, by the aid of trusted artists, well skilled in the construction of houses, have finally built this mansion, after procuring hemp, resin, heath, straw, and bamboos, all soaked in clarified butter. This wicked wretch, Purochna, acting under the instruction of Duryodhana, stayeth here with the object of burning me to death when he seeth me trustful. But, O son of Pritha, Vidura of great intelligence knew this danger, and, therefore, hath warned me of it beforehand. Knowing it all, that youngest uncle of ours, ever wishing our good from affection, hath told us that this house, so full of danger, hath been constructed by the wretches under Duryodhana acting in secrecy. Hearing this, Bhima replied, If sir, you know this house to be so inflammable, it would then be well for us to return thither where we had taken up our quarters first. Yudhishthira replied, It seems to me that we should rather continue to live here in seeming unsuspiciousness, but all the while with caution and our senses wide awake and seeking for some certain means of escape. If Purochna findeth from our countenances that we have fathomed designs, acting with haste he may suddenly burn us to death. Indeed, Purochna careth little for obloquy or sin. The wretch stayeth here acting under the instruction of Duryodhana. If we are burned to death, will our grandfather Bhishma be angry? Why will he, by showing his wrath, make the Kauravas angry with him? Or, perhaps, our grandfather Bhishma and the other bull of Kuru's race, regarding indignation at such a sinful act to be virtuous, may become wrathful. If, however, from fear of being burnt, we fly from here, Duryodhana, ambitious of sovereignty, will certainly compass our death by means of spies. While we have no rank and power, Duryodhana hath both. While we have no friends and allies, Duryodhana hath both. While we are without wealth, Duryodhana hath at his command a full treasury. Will he not, therefore, certainly destroy us by adopting adequate means? Let us, therefore, by deceiving this wretch, Purochna, and that other wretch Duryodhana, pass our days, disguising ourselves at times. Let us also lead a hunting life, wandering over the earth. We shall then, if we have to escape our enemies, be familiar with all paths. We shall also, this very day, cause a subterranean passage to be dug in our chamber in great secrecy. If we act in this way, concealing what we do from all, fire shall never be able to consume us. We shall live here, actively doing everything for our safety, but with such privacy that neither Purochna nor any of the citizens of Varnavata may know what we are after. Thus ends the 148th section in the Jatagriha Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 149, Jatagriha Parva continued. Vasampayana continued, a friend of Vidura's person well skilled in mining, coming unto the Pandavas, addressed them in secret, saying, I have been sent by Vidura and am a skillful miner. I am to serve the Pandavas, tell me what I am to do for ye. From the trust he reposeth in me, Vidura hath said unto me, Go thou unto the Pandavas and accomplish thou their good. What shall I do for you? Purochna will set fire to the door of thy house on the 14th night of this the dark fortnight, to burn to death those tigers among men, the Pandavas with their mother, is the design of that wicked wretch the son of Dhritarashtra. O son of Pandu, Vidura also told thee something in the Mlecha tongue to which thou also hadst replied in same language. I state these particulars as my credentials. Hearing these words, Yudhishthira, the truthful son of Kunti replied, O amiable one, I now know thee as a dear and trusted friend of Vidura, true and ever devoted to him. There is nothing that the learned Vidura doth not know. As his, so ours art thou. Make no difference between him and us. We are as much thine as his. O protect us as the learned Vidura ever protecteth us. I know that this house, so inflammable, hath been contrived for me by Purochna at the command of Dhritarashtra's son. That wicked wretch commanding wealth and allies pursueth us without intermission. O, save us with a little exertion from the impending conflagration. If we are burned to death here, Duryodhana's most cherished desire will be satisfied. Here is that wretch's well-furnished arsenal. This large mansion hath been built abutting the high ramparts of the arsenal without any outlet. But this unholy contrivance of Duryodhana was known to Vidura from the first, and he it was who enlightened us beforehand. The danger of which Khatri had foreknowledge is now at our door. Save us from it without Purochna's knowledge thereof. On hearing these words, the miner said, So be it, and carefully beginning his work of excavation, made a large subterranean passage, and the mouth of that passage was in the center of that house, and it was on a level with the floor and closed up with planks. The mouth was so covered from fear of Purochna, that wicked wretch who kept a constant watch at the door of the house. The Pandavas used to sleep within their chambers with arms ready for use, while, during the day, they went a-hunting from forest to forest. Thus, O king, they lived, in that mansion, very guardedly, deceiving Purochna by a show of trustfulness and contentment while in reality, they were trustless and discontented. Nor did the citizens of Varnavata know anything about these plans of the Pandavas. In fact, none else knew of them except Vidura's friend, that good miner. Thus ends the 149th section in the Jatagriha Parva, of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 150, Jatagriha Parva continued. Vasampayana said, seeing the Pandavas living there cheerfully and without suspicion for a full year, Purochna became exceedingly glad. And beholding Purochna so very glad, Yudhishthira, the virtuous son of Kunti, addressing Bhima and Arjuna and the twins, Nakula and Sahdeva, said, The cruel-hearted wretch hath been well deceived. I think the time is come for our escape. Setting fire to the arsenal and burning Purochna to death and letting his body lie here, let us, 6 persons, fly hence unobserved by all. Vasampayana continued, then on the occasion of an almsgiving, O king, Kunti fed on a certain night a large number of Brahmanas. There came also a number of ladies who while eating and drinking, enjoyed there as they pleased, and with Kunti's leave returned to their respective homes. Desirous of obtaining food, there came, as though impelled by fate, to that feast, in course of her wanderings, a Nishda woman, the mother of 5 children, accompanied by all her sons. O king, she, and her children, intoxicated with the wine they drank, become incapable, deprived of consciousness and more dead than alive, she with all her sons lay down in that mansion to sleep. Then when all the inmates of the house lay down to sleep, there began to blow a violent wind in the night. Bhima then set fire to the house just where Purochna was sleeping. Then the son of Pandu set fire to the door of that house of lac. Then he set fire to the mansion in several parts all around. Then when the sons of Pandu were satisfied that the house had caught fire in several parts, those chastisers of foes with their mother, entered subterranean passage without losing any time. Then the heat and the roar of the fire became intense and awakened the townspeople. Beholding the house in flames, the citizens with sorrowful faces began to say, "The wretch, Purochna, of wicked soul had under the instruction of Duryodhana, built his house for the destruction of his employer's relatives. He indeed hath set fire to it. O fie on Dhritarashtra's heart which is so partial. He hath burned to death, as if he were therefore, the sinless heirs of Pandu I.O., the sinful and wicked soul, Purochna, who hath burnt those best of men, the innocent and unsuspicious princes, hath himself been burned to death as fate would have it." Vasampayana continued, "The citizens of Varnavata thus bewailed the fate of the Pandavas, and waited there for the whole night surrounding that house. The Pandavas, however, accompanied by their mother, coming out of the subterranean passage, fled in haste unnoticed. But those chastisers of foes, for sleepiness and feet, could not with their mother proceed in haste. But, O monarch, Bhimsena, endued with terrible prowess and swiftness of motion, took upon his body all his brothers and mother and began to push through the darkness. Placing his mother on his shoulder, the twins on his sides, and Yudhishthira and Arjuna on both his arms, Vkodra of great energy and strength and endued with the speed of the wind, commenced his march, breaking the trees with his breast and pressing deep the earth with his stamp. Thus ends the 150th section in the Jatagriha Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 151, Jatagriha Parva continued. Vasampayana said, about this time, the learned Vidura had sent into those woods a man of pure character and much trusted by him. This person, going to where he had been directed, saw the Pandavas with their mother in the forest employed in a certain place in measuring the depth of a river. The design that the wicked Duryodhana had formed had been, through his spies, known to Vidura of great intelligence, and therefore, he had sent that prudent person unto the Pandavas. Sent by Vidura unto them, he showed the Pandavas on the sacred banks of Ganges, a boat with engines and flags, constructed by trusted artificers and capable of withstanding wind and wave and endued with the speed of the tempest or of thought. He then addressed the Pandavas in these words to show that he had really been sent by Vidura. O Yudhishthira, he said, listen to these words the learned Vidura had said unto thee, as a proof of the fact that I come from him. I neither the consumer of straw and the wood nor the dryer of dew ever burneth the inmates of a jewel in the forest. He escaped from death who protected himself, knowing this, etc. By these credentials know me to be the person who has been truly sent by Vidura and to be also his trusted agent. Vidura, conversant with everything, hath again said, O son of Kunti, thou shalt surely defeat in battle Kama, and Duryodhana with his brothers, and Sakuni. This boat is ready on the waters, and it will glide pleasantly thereon, and shall certainly bear you all from these regions. Then beholding those foremost of men with their mother pensive and sad, he caused them to go into the boat that was on Ganga, and accompanied them himself. Addressing them again, he said, Vidura, having smelt your heads and embraced you, mentally, Hath said again that in commencing your auspicious journey and going alone you should never be careless. Saying these words unto those heroic princes, the person sent by Vidura took those bulls among men over to the other side of Ganga in his boat. And having taken them over the water and seen them all safe on the opposite bank, he uttered the word, Jaya, victory, to their success and then left them and returned to the place when he had come. The illustrious Pandavas also sending through that person some message to Vidura, began, after having crossed the Ganges, to proceed with haste and in great secrecy. Thus ends the 151st section in the Jatugriha Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 152, Jatugriha Parva continued. Vasampayana said, then, when the night had passed away, a large concourse of the townspeople came there in haste to see the sons of Pandu. After extinguishing the fire, they saw that the house just burnt down had been built of lac in materials and that Duryodhana's counselors Purochna had been burned to death. And the people began to bewail aloud, saying, indeed, this had been contrived by the sinful Duryodhana for the destruction of the Pandavas. There is little doubt that Duryodhana hath, with Dhritarashtra's knowledge, burned to death the heirs of Pandu, else the prince would have been prevented by his father. There is little doubt that even Bhishma, the son of Santanu, and Drona and Vidura and Kripa and other Kauravas have not, any of them, followed the dictates of duty. Let us now send to Dhritarashtra to say thy great desire hath been achieved. Thou hast burned to death the Pandavas. They then began to extinguish the members to obtain some trace of the Pandavas, and they saw the innocent Nishda woman with her 5 sons burned to death. Then the miners sent by Vidura, while removing the ashes, covered the hole he had dug with those ashes in such a way that it remained unnoticed by all who had gone there. The citizens then sent to Dhritarashtra to inform him that the Pandavas along with Duryodhana's counselor Purochna had been burned to death. King Dhritarashtra, on hearing the evil news of the death of the Pandavas, wept in a great sorrow. And he said, King Pandu, my brother of great fame hath, indeed, died today when those heroic sons of his together with their mother have been burned to death. Ye men, repair quickly to Varnavata and cause the funeral rites to be performed of those heroes and of the daughter of Kunti Raj. Let also the bones of the deceased be sanctified with the usual rites, and let all the beneficial and great acts, usual on such occasion, be performed. Let the friends and relatives of those that have been burned to death repair thither. Let also all athate beneficial acts that ought, under the circumstances, to be performed by us for the Pandavas and Kunti be accomplished by wealth. Having said this, Dhritarashtra, the son of Ambika, surrounded by his relatives, offered oblations of water to the sons of Pandu. And all of them, afflicted with excessive sorrow, bewailed aloud, exclaiming, O Yudhishthira! O prince of the Kuru race! While others cried aloud, O Bhima! O Falguna! While some again, O the twins I O Kunti! Thus did they sorrow for the Pandavas and offer oblations of water unto them. The citizens also wept for the Pandavas, but Vidura did not weep much, because he knew the truth. Meanwhile the Pandavas, endued with great strength, with their mother forming a company of 6 going out of the town of Varnavata, arrived at the banks of Ganga. They then speedily reached the opposite bank, aided by the strength of the boatmen's arms, the rapidity of the river's current, and a favorable wind. Leaving the boat, they proceeded in the southern direction, finding their way in the dark by the light of the stars. After much suffering they at last reached, O king, a dense forest. They were then tired and thirsty, sleep was closing their eyes every moment. Then Yudhishthira, addressing Bhima endued with great energy, said, "What can be more painful than this? We are now in the deep woods. We know not which side is which, nor can we proceed much further. We do not know whether that wretch Purochna hath not been burned to death. How shall we escape from these dangers unseen by others? O Bharata, taking us on thyself, proceed thou as before. Thou alone amongst us art strong and swift as the wind." Thus addressed by Yudhishthira the just, the mighty Bhimsena, taking up on his body Kunti and his brothers, began to proceed with great celerity. Thus ends the 152nd section in the Jatugriha Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 153, Jatugriha Parva continued. Vasampayana said, as the mighty Bhima proceeded, the whole forest with its trees and their branches seemed to tremble, in consequence of their clash with his breast. The motion of his thighs raised a wind like unto that which blows during the months of Jashta and Asphira, May and June. And the mighty Bhima proceeded, making a path for himself, but treading down the trees and creepers before him. In fact, broke, by the pressure of his body, the large trees and plants with their flowers and fruits, standing on his way. Even so passed through the woods breaking down mighty trees, the leader of a herd of elephants, of the age of 60 years, angry and endued with excess of energy, during the season of Rat when the liquid juice trickled down the three parts of his body. Indeed, so great was the force with which Bhima endued with the speed of Garuda or of Marut, the god of wind, proceeded that the Pandavas seemed to faint in consequence. Frequently swimming across streams difficult of being crossed, the Pandavas disguised themselves on their way from fear of the sons of Dhritarashtra. And Bhima carried on his shoulder his illustrious mother of delicate sensibilities along the uneven banks of rivers. Towards the evening, O bull of Bharata's race, Bhima, bearing his brothers and mother on his back, reached a terrible forest where fruits and roots and water were scarce and which resounded with the terrible cries of birds and beasts. The twilight deepened, the cries of birds and beasts became fiercer, darkness shrouded everything from the view, and untimely winds began to blow that broke and laid low many a tree large and small and many creepers with dry leaves and fruits. The Kaurava princes, afflicted with fatigue and thirst, and heavy with sleep, were unable to proceed further. They then all sat down in that forest without food and drink. Then Kunti, smitten with thirst, said unto her sons, I am the mother of the 5 Pandavas and am now in their midst, yet I am burning with thirst. Kunti repeatedly said this unto her sons. Hearing these words, Bhima's heart, from affection for his mother, was warmed by compassion, and he resolved to go along as before. Then Bhima, proceeding through that terrible and extensive forest without a living soul, saw a beautiful banyan tree with wide-spreading branches. Setting down there his brothers and mother, O bull of Bharata's race, he said unto them, Rest you here, while I go in quest of water. I hear the sweet cries of aquatic fowls. I think there must be a large pool here. Commanded, O Bharata, by his elder brother, who said unto him, Go. And Bhima proceeded in the direction whence the cries of those aquatic fowls were coming. And, O bull of Bharata's race, he soon came upon a lake and bathed and slaked his thirst. And affectionate unto his brothers, he brought for them, O Bharata, water by soaking his upper garments. Hastily retracing his way over those 4 miles, he came unto where his mother was, and beholding her he was afflicted with sorrow and began to sigh like a snake. Distressed with grief at seeing his mother and brothers asleep on the bare ground, Vrikodra began to weep. O wretch that I am, who beholdeth his brothers asleep on the bare ground, what can befall me, more painful than this? Alas! They who formerly at Varnavata could not sleep on the softest and costliest beds are now asleep on the bare ground. Oh, what more painful sight shall I ever behold than that of Kunti, the sister of Vasudeva, that grinder of hostile hosts, the daughter of Kunti Raja, herself decked with every auspicious mark, the daughter-in-law of Vichitravirya, the wife of the illustrious Pandu, the mother of us, 5 brothers, resplendent as the filaments of the lotus, and delicate and tender and fit to sleep on the costliest bed, thus asleep, as she should never be, on the bare ground. O, she who hath brought forth these sons by Dharma and Indra and Manruta, she who hath ever slept within palaces, now sleepeth, fatigued, on the bare ground. What more painful sight shall ever be beheld by me than that of these tigers among men, my brothers, asleep on the ground? O, the virtuous Yudhishthira, who deserveth the sovereignty of the 3 worlds, sleepeth, fatigued, like an ordinary man, on the bare ground. This Arjuna of the darkish hue of blue clouds, and unequalled amongst men, sleepeth on the ground like an ordinary person. Oh, what can be more painful than this? Oh, the twins, who in beauty are like the twins amongst the celestials, are asleep like ordinary mortals on the bare ground. He who hath no jealous and evil-minded relatives, liveth in happiness in this world like a single tree in a village. The tree that standeth single in a village with its leaves and fruits, from absence of others of the same species, becometh sacred and is worshipped and venerated by all. They again that have many relatives who, however, are all heroic and virtuous, live happily in the world without sorrow of any kind. Themselves powerful and growing in prosperity and always gladdening their friends and relatives, they live, depending on each other, like tall trees growing in the same forest. We, however, have been forced in exile by the wicked Dhritarashtra and his sons, having escaped with difficulty, from sheer good fortune, a fiery death. Having escaped from that fire, we are now resting in the shade of this tree. Having already suffered so much, where now are we to go? Ye sons of Dhritarashtra of little foresight, ye wicked fellows, enjoy your temporary success. The gods are certainly auspicious to you. But ye wicked wretches, ye are alive yet, only because Yudhishthira doth not command me to take your lives. Else this very day, filled as I am with wrath, I would send thee, O Duryodhana, to the regions of Yam, Pluto, with thy children and friends and brothers, and Kama, and Sakuni, the son of Suvala. But what can I do, for, ye sinful wretches, the virtuous king Yudhishthira, the eldest of the Pandavas, is not yet angry with you. Having said this, Bhima of mighty arms, fired with wrath, began to squeeze his palms, sighing deeply in affliction. Excited again with wrath like an extinguished fire blazing up all on a sudden, Vrikodra once more beheld his brothers sleeping on the ground like ordinary persons sleeping in trustfulness. And Bhima said unto himself, I think there is some town not far off from this forest. These all are asleep, so I will sit awake. And this will slake their thirst after they rise refreshed from sleep. Saying this, Bhima sat there awake, keeping watch over his sleeping mother and brothers. Thus ends the 153rd section in the Jatugriha Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 154, Hidimvan Badha Parva. Vasampayana said, not far from the place where the Pandavas were asleep, a Rakshasa by name Hidimvan dwelt on the Sala tree. Possessed of great energy and prowess, he was a cruel cannibal of visage that was grim in consequence of his sharp and long teeth. He was now hungry and longing for human food. Of long shanks and a large belly, his locks and beard were both red in hue. His shoulders were broad like the neck of a tree, his ears were like unto arrows, and his features were frightful. O red eyes and grim visage, the monster beheld, while casting his glances around, the sons of Pandu sleeping in those woods. He was then hungry and longing for human flesh. Shaking his dry and grizzly locks and scratching them with his fingers pointed upwards, the large-mouthed cannibal repeatedly looked at the sleeping sons of Pandu, yawning wishfully at times. Of huge body and great strength, of complexion like a mass of clouds, of teeth long and sharp-pointed and face emitting a sort of luster, he was ever pleased with human food. And scenting the odor of man, he addressed his sister, saying, O sister, it is after a long time that such agreeable food hath approached me. My mouth waters at the anticipated relish of such food. My 8 teeth, so sharp-pointed and incapable of being resisted any substance, I shall today, after a long time, put into the most delicious flesh. Attacking the human throat and even opening the vein, I shall, today, drink a plentiful quantity of human blood, hot and fresh and 40. Go and ascertain who these are, lying asleep in these woods. The strong scent of man pleaseth my nostrils. Slaughtering all these men, bring them unto me. They sleep within my dominion. Thou needest have no fear from them. Do my bidding soon, for we shall then together eat their flesh, tearing off their bodies at pleasure. And after feasting to our fill on human flesh, we shall then dance together to various measures. I, thus addressed by Hidimvan in those woods, Hidimvan, the female cannibal, at the command of her brother, went, O bull of Bharata's race, to the spot where the Pandavas were, and on going there, she beheld the Pandavas asleep with their mother and the invincible Bhimsena sitting awake. And beholding Bhimsena unrivaled on earth for beauty and like unto a vigorous sala tree, the Rakshasa woman immediately fell in love with him, and she said to herself, this person of hue like heated gold and of mighty arms, of broad shoulders as the lion, and so resplendent, of neck marked with 3 lines like a conch shell and eyes like lotus petals, is worthy of being my husband. I shall not obey the cruel mandate of my brother. A woman's love for her husband is stronger than her affection for her brother. If I slay him, my brother's gratification as well as mine will only be momentary. But if I slay him not, I can enjoy with him forever and ever. Thus saying, the Rakshasa woman, capable of assuming form at will, assumed an excellent human form and began to advance with slow steps towards Bhima of mighty arms. Decked with celestial ornaments, she advanced with smiles on her lips and a modest gait, and addressing Bhima said, O bull among men, whence hast thou come here, and who art thou? Who, besides, are these persons of celestial beauty sleeping here? Also, O sinless one, is this lady of transcendent beauty sleeping so trustfully in these woods as if she were lying in her own chamber? Dost thou not know that this forest is the abode of a Rakshasa? Truly do I say, here liveth the wicked Rakshasa called Hidimvan. Ye beings of celestial beauty, I have been sent hither even by that Rakshasa my brother with the cruel intent of killing you for his food. But I tell thee truly that beholding thee resplendent as a celestial, I would have none else for my husband save thee. Thou who art acquainted with all duties, knowing this, do unto me what is proper. My heart as well as my body hath been pierced by the shafts of Kama, Cupid. O, desirous as I am of obtaining thee, make me thine. O thou of mighty arms, I will rescue thee from the Rakshasa who eateth human flesh. O sinless one, be thou my husband. We shall then live on the breasts of mountains inaccessible to ordinary mortals. I can range the air, and I do so at pleasure. Thou mayest enjoy great felicity with me in those regions. Hearing these words of hers, Bhima replied, O Rakshasa woman, who can, like a Muni having all his passions under control, abandon his sleeping mother and elder and younger brothers? What man like me would go to gratify his lust, leaving his sleeping mother and brothers as food for a Rakshasa? The Rakshasa woman replied, O, awaken all these, I shall do unto you all what is agreeable to thee. I shall certainly rescue you all from my cannibal brother. Bhima then said, O Rakshasa woman, I will not, from fear of thy wicked brother, awaken my brothers and mother sleeping comfortably in the woods. O timid one, Rakshasas are never able to bear the prowess of my arms. And, O thou of handsome eyes, neither men, nor Kandavas, nor Yaksakas are able to bear my might. O amiable one, thou mayst stay or go as thou likest, or mayst even send thy cannibal brother, O thou of delicate shape. I care not I. Thus ends the 154th section in the Hidimban Parva of the Adi Parva. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Adi Parva. Section 155, Hidimban Parva continued. Vasampayana said, Hidimban, the chief of the Rakshasas, seeing that his sister returned not soon enough, alighted from the tree, proceeded quickly to the spot where the Pandavas were, of red eyes and strong arms, and the arms and the hair of his head standing erect, of large open mouth and body like unto a mass of dark clouds, teeth long and sharp-pointed, he was terrible to behold. And Hidimban, beholding her brother of frightful visage alight from the tree, became very much alarmed, and addressing Bhima said, The wicked cannibal is coming hither in wrath. I entreat thee, do, with thy brothers, as I bid thee. Thou of great courage, as I am endued with the powers of a Rakshasa, I am capable of going whithersoever I like. Mount ye on my hips, I will carry you all through the skies. And, O Chartisa of foes, awaken these and thy mother sleeping in comfort. Taking them all on my body, I will convey you through the skies. Bhima then said, O thou of fair hips, fear not anything. Lamb sure that as long as I am here, there is no Rakshasa capable of injuring any of these. O thou of slender waist, I will slay this cannibal before thy very eyes. This worst of Rakshasas, O timid one, is no worthy antagonist of mine, nor can all the Rakshasas together bear the strength of my arms. Behold these strong arms of mine, each like unto the trunk of an elephant. Behold also these thighs of mine like unto iron misses, and this broad and adamantine chest. O beautiful one, thou shalt today behold my prowess like unto that of Indra. O thou of fair hips, hate me not, thinking that I am a man. Hidimban replied, saying, O tiger among men, O thou of the beauty of a celestial, I do not certainly hold thee in contempt. but I have seen the prowess that Rakshasa exert upon men. Vasampayana continued, then, O Bharata, the wrathful Rakshasa eating human flesh heard these words of Bhima, who had been talking in that way. And Hidimvan beheld his sister disguised in human form, her head decked with garlands of flowers, and her face like the full moon, and her eyebrows and nose and eyes and ringlets all of the handsomest description, and her nails and complexion of the most delicate hue, and herself wearing every kind of ornament and attired in fine transparent robes. The cannibal, beholding her in that charming human form, suspected that she was desirous of carnal intercourse and became indignant. And, O best of the Kurus, becoming angry with his sister, the Rakshasa dilated his eyes and addressing her said, "What senseless creatures wishes to throw obstacles in my path now that I am so hungry? Hast thou become so senseless, O Hidimvan, that thou fearest not my wrath? Fie on thee, thou unjust woman! Thou art even own desirous of carnal intercourse and solicitous of doing me an injury. Thou art ready to sacrifice the good name and honor of all the Rakshasas, thy ancestors. Those with whose aid thou wouldst do me this great injury, I will, even now, slay along with thee." Addressing his sister thus, Hidimvan, with eyes red with anger and teeth pressing against teeth, ran at her to kill her then and there. But beholding him rush at his sister, Bhima, that foremost of smiters, endued with great energy, rebuked him and said, "Stop, stop." Vasampayana continued, and Bhima, beholding the Rakshasa angry with his sister, smiled, in derision, and addressing him, "O Hidimvan, what need is there for thee to awaken these persons sleeping so comfortably? O wicked cannibal, approach me first without loss of time. Smite me first, it behoveth thee not to kill a woman, especially when she hath been sinned against instead of sinning. This girl is scarcely responsible for her act in desiring intercourse with me. She hath, in this, been moved by the deity of desire that pervadeth every living form. Thou wicked wretch and the most infamous of Rakshasas, thy sister came here at thy command. Beholding my person, she desireth me. In that the timid girl doth no injury to thee. It is the deity of desire that hath offended. It behoveth thee not to injure her for this offense. O wicked wretch, thou shalt not slay a woman when I am here. Come with me, O cannibal, and fight with myself singly. Singly shall I send thee today to the abode of Yam, Pluto. O Rakshasa, let thy head today, pressed by my might, be pounded to pieces, as though pressed by the tread of a mighty elephant. Slain by me on the field of battle, let herons and hawks and jackals tear in glee thy limbs today on the ground. In a moment I shall today make this forest destitute of Rakshasas, this forest that had so long been pulled by thee, devourer of human beings. Thy sister, O Rakshasa, shall today behold thyself, huge though thou art, like a mountain, like a huge elephant repeatedly dragged by a lion, O worst of Rakshasas, thyself slain by me. Men ranging these woods will henceforth do so safely and without fear." Hearing these words, Hidimvan said, "What need is there, O man, this thy want and this thy boast? Accomplish all this first, and then mayest thou want indeed. Therefore, delay thou not. Thou knowest thyself to be strong and endued with prowess, so thou shalt rightly estimate thy strength today in thy encounter with me. Until that, I will not slay these, thy brothers. Let them sleep comfortably. But I will, as thou art a fool and the utterer of evil speeches, slay thee first. After drinking thy blood, I will slay these also, and then last of all, this, sister of mine, that hath done me an injury. Vasampayana continued, saying this, the cannibal, extending his arms ran in wrath towards Bhimsena, that chastiser of foes. Then Bhima of terrible prowess quickly seized, as though in sport, with great force, the extended arms of the Rakshasa who had rushed at him, then seizing the struggling Rakshasa with violence, Bhima dragged him from that spot full 32 cubits like a lion dragging a little animal. Then the Rakshasa, thus made to feel the weight of Bhima's strength, became very angry and clasping the Pandav, sent forth a terrible yell. The mighty Bhima then dragged with force the Rakshasa to a greater distance, lest his yells should awaken his brothers sleeping in comfort. Clasping and dragging each other with great force, both Hidimvan and Bhimsena put forth their prowess. Fighting like two full-grown elephants mad with rage, they then began to break down the trees and tear the creepers that grew around. And at those sounds, those tigers among men, the sleeping Pandavas, woke up with their mother, and saw Hidimvan sitting before them. Thus ends the 155th section in the Hidimvan Vadha Parva of the Adi Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.